Thank you for beautiful service, Rabbi Young and all. You know, when the Torah talks about us being here at Mount Sinai, Rashi, the commentator, says we were as one people with one heart. And I think all of the wows that people are is that this is very special. So what I'd like to, I just want to thank right now Lisa Armoni and all of the staff at the Jewish Federation, who has really been our partner in all of creating this. I want to thank all of the 11 communities that have decided to not do your own Shavuot, but instead give something greater to the community. It's been an absolute pleasure. So I'd love to just invite Lisa Armoni from the Jewish Federation to say a little bit about their partnership in this incredible event. Are you there, Lisa?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear
me?
I've been unmuted.
Oh, there.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi Weider. And thank you, everybody, for being here. This is really exciting. You know, for 2 months, we've been sheltering in our homes. We've been doing our best to protect ourselves and our loved ones and our neighbors from a virus that is just wreaking havoc all over the world. And now here we are at Shavuot, at precisely the time that we should be in community, right? And our ancestors gathered at Mount Sinai so many thousands of years ago to receive the Torah on this day. And then we just heard Rabbi Young talk about in Jerusalem, the pilgrimage and the gathering at the temple to bring their bikurim. And now today in the modern age, we gather communally in our houses of worship to commemorate the awesome experience at Sinai, right? Clearly total violations of our social distancing protocols. And yet here we are in our isolation, unable to gather physically and celebrate, but we can celebrate together nonetheless, thanks to the technology, thanks to the collaboration, thanks to the inspiration of Rabbi Kavod Weider and all of the rabbis and cantors that have come together, and everybody who worked so hard behind the scenes at the Federation and elsewhere to make this happen. And thanks to the over 600 people who are going to be participating at some point tonight. It's incredibly heartwarming and inspiring and just wonderful to know that we can be innovative and adaptive and flexible and come together at these special times despite the obstacles that may get thrown in our way. I do want to acknowledge that for some people, this has been an incredibly difficult and painful time. I know many people in our community are suffering and are dealing with obstacles they had not foreseen even 3 months ago. To those of you who've been impacted by COVID and everything that has come with it, I want you to know that we are here for you as a community. You have the strength of the community to support you. On behalf of the Jewish Federation of Orange County, I want to thank again everybody who made tonight possible. I want to call out especially my colleagues, Nitzan Harel and Amy Curtaro at the Federation, who did so much behind the scenes, the tech, the coordination, preparing the booklets, everything that's going to make tonight wonderful and seamless. And on behalf of our Federation board and staff, I just want to wish everybody a Chag Sameach and good health. And I look forward to seeing all of you, hopefully in person soon, but if not, on other social media platforms as we get through this challenge together. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Rabbi Eli Spitz, would you start us off with our learning this evening?
Good evening. I am honored to be part of this gathering. I want to thank Kavod and Lisa for helping organize it. We are now, as a community, gathered together, reminded that 49 days ago, 50 days ago on the Jewish calendar, we left Egypt and we're headed as a community shoulder to shoulder to this moment of gathering again in anticipation of receiving Torah. It says in our Haggadah that each person should see him or herself as if he or she went out from Egypt. And so in this moment, we are to see ourselves with the aid of Zoom, arm in arm, gathered from all kinds of places in celebration. We are gathered in a virtual synagogue, a synagogue without walls, in which we are a collective, not unlike standing at Mount Sinai, a space without walls. But when we have a synagogue, the one architectural requirement is that it have windows. And the rabbis explained that that's how Daniel in the Bible prayed, but more, that when we feel the security of being together, we should always still be aware of the larger world beyond. And so in this moment, before I begin to teach COVID and Psalm 23, I just want to pause to look through the window and acknowledge that the 100,000th victim of COVID in the United States has passed this week. A beloved congregant this week lost her father to COVID. We have had others in my community. We are gathered together with the awareness that this year is different than other years. And we are gathered together on Shavuot to know we gain strength from each other and we gain comfort from the words of our tradition. The Psalms are the Jewish people's playlist. They are our collective tributes and longings and fears that we have expressed across generations to God. And of all of those Psalms, the best known is Psalm 23. In fact, it's probably the one chapter of the entire Bible that many know by heart. It's been put to music by Bach, Leonard Bernstein, Dvorak, Schubert, the Grateful Dead, Judy Collins, Bobby McFerrin, Tupac Shakur, and in a moment, we're going to hear a version of Psalm 23 by Ben Zion Schenker. But before our beloved Baalat Tfilah of Congregation B'nai Israel, Amy Robinson Katz, chants the Hebrew, I just want to point out how short Psalm 23 is. It's only in Hebrew, 57 words, 6 verses. In part, it's its conciseness that allows us to have familiarity with us. But it is also a psalm of calm, of care, and of hope. A psalm well suited to this Shavuot. And now I ask for my friend, Amy Robinson Katz, to be unmuted. Is she there?
I'm here.
All right, there you are.
Thank you, Rabbi Spitz. Mizmor LeDavid, Donai Roi Lo Echsar, Binot Tesher Yarbitzeini, Amei Menuchot Yenachaleni. Nafshi Yeshoven, Nafshi Yeshoven, Ya'anacheini L'magle Tzedek L'ma'an Shemo. Gam ki elech b'getz ha'mavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha shivtecha umishantecha hama yanachamuni טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי ושבתי בבית אדוני ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימי.
Thank you. So we know Psalm 23, most of us, from funerals. When you go to a funeral, usually it's part of the handout that everyone joins together saying. But in our Jewish tradition, it's not only said in times of sadness, these words of comfort, they're also said before eating bread. I had a congregant from Persia. He was over 100 years old. He could hardly speak. And when I came to visit him, his family prompted him, Isaac Rafa, and he chanted Psalm 23 from heart, because every Friday night before they had the motzi, as was the Persian Jewish custom, Psalm 23, words of feeling comforted, God as our shepherd, providing for our needs, was part that enabled us to feel the goodness of our lives. There's a difference between reading a cookbook and eating a fine meal. Religious experiences are the eating of a meal, the experience of the holy, the drawing forth what it is that we intuitively feel about our lives. And at the same time, there's a place for being analytic. And I've been analyzing the Psalms as poetry for the last 10 weeks during the shutdown. But tonight, in the 15 minutes I still have, what I'd rather do than showing the masterful weave and how the Psalm works is enable us to have ways of entering into the Psalm and appreciating both its powerful images and the journey that the psalmist takes us on. Now, the most common reading of Psalms, Psalm 23, is usually that is the King James Version. And because it's the most familiar to the most people, I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to invite us to do kind of a meditation in which we, if you will, close your eyes and see yourselves looking at a screen. And this is a storyboard. These 6 lines are a set of images. And I'm going to read to you the most familiar version of Psalm 23, the King James. And I'd like you to just go along with the psalmist and feel the blues of the water and the green of the grass, to feel the calmness that's conveyed. So I invite you, if you will, to close your eyes and breathe out, but you don't have to. You can just listen to whatever is your comfort. But I'd like you to breathe out all the anxiety of getting to this moment of being together in community, and breathe in the calm and the goodness of Shavuot. As you allow yourself to breathe easily and to watch the images and to feel how the images resonate for you. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Albert Einstein said that science can open up much understanding of how the world works, but he said there's a question that science cannot answer, and namely, is the world a friendly place? This psalm, like all the psalms, are written to God. They're written from a place of faith that the world is good. They're written from a place of faith that there is a caring, loving creator who is alongside of us in our times of trouble. What I'd like to do is now look at the words of this psalm with another translation. This is a translation that I have put together. You're gonna come up on, you're gonna put it up, Amy? My translation? Yeah, okay. Put it up now. Okay. So every translation is an interpretation, or there are variations in reading even these Hebrew words as to what they mean. And there's also a changing ear for us. So saying God is He is a bit challenging for me, and probably for most of us. And so as part of my teaching of Psalms has been my own translations. And can you bring it up? If not, I'll read it to you. Either way, I'm going to read it to you. All right, let me read. Let me read another translation. Hold in your memory the psalm. Again, it's only 6 verses. And what I want to share with you are key lessons of this psalm for our moment, our COVID moment, our Shavuot moment. And I'm going to comment on the journey that this psalm leads us on. A psalm of David, Adonai, that's the Hebrew for God, is my shepherd, I shall not lack. We are a people of shepherds. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, they were shepherds. The first lesson is that the role of a shepherd is to care for each sheep individually. We are to see ourselves with a caring shepherd. It's an act of faith. It's a statement of intuition that the world is a caring place. And when the psalm says, I shall not lack, that foreshadows how the psalm will proceed. In green pastures, God lets me lie down. Alongside tranquil waters leads me. My spirit revives, guiding me on roundabouts of justice for the sake of the divine name. The first thing that is conveyed is that of tranquility. Literally, blues and greens are the colors that calm us, the green pastures, the blue waters, and the experience that we are guided, that we are cared for. And the first lesson of the psalm is that each of us should feel our own uniqueness, our own value to our shepherd. By spirit, God revives, guiding me on roundabouts of justice for the sake of the divine name. That this God, this caring shepherd, is leading us on paths of justice. Sometimes it may feel roundabout. Sometimes the easiest path and the quickest path is also the most circuitous, but we trust, are called to trust. And now a shift from the calm, from the sense of being cared for, to verse 4. For though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no harm, for you stand with me. Your identifying rod and your sustaining staff, they comfort me. So in verse 4, there's an awareness that it's not all safe, that we live in a world in which there are shadows of death. And that's true at all phases of our life, because uniquely we're aware that we're all mortal. But even more in this moment, we're aware that when we go shopping, we put on gloves and a mask and we are nervous. It's a new quality of being in the shadows of that which isn't fully seen and which threatens our very lives. But even in this moment, verse 4 says, God, I know you are alongside of me, guiding me with your rod and your staff, comforting me. It's pointed out by Rabbi Harold Kushner that the most repeated line of the Torah is, you shall not fear. And that's right here in the middle. But actually, the middle phrase of this entire psalm, when you count the words in Hebrew, is in this verse. Ki ata imadi, because you are with me. That's the center of stability here. But now another shift, verse 5. You prepare a table for me opposite my enemies. You luxuriate my head with oil, my cup overflows. Back to verse 4, the teaching of my friend, Rabbi Steinberg. And that is, in counseling, he will tell people who are mourning in the shadow of death, you got to keep walking. You got to keep processing. That's a beautiful insight. But there's another part to verse 4, and that is, you will get to the other side and there will be light. Do not fear, I am with you. This COVID moment, it too shall pass. There's a maturation that occurs. We go from being sheep, passive, to verse 5, humans who are sitting at a table, and God has bounty in front of us, a reminder of the need for gratitude, to know that when we are sheltered in place, we have food, we have shelter, we have for fortunate loved ones, either with us or to connect with. And in that sense, even though the enemy is opposite us, we are grateful. We know that our table is a gift and what we have is bountiful. And verse 6 is another step on the journey. Let only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will find Sabbath in the home of Adonai for unending days. In verse 6, the culmination of this psalm, the psalmist seeks only the presence of God and the sense of Shabbat. There's a word play. Shafti, shave means to sit. It can mean to dwell in the King James Version, but it can also be, let me find Shabbat, the same root. What is distinctive about Shabbat? On Shabbat, we're taught, like by Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, that our worth is not about our jobs, that our worth is not about our status and achievements and what we own, that our worth, our value is intrinsic to being God's beloved, and that we are to feel beloved. And that too is a statement of faith. It's a statement of faith that everybody is created in the image of God and everybody is of ultimate value. And so the journey of verse 6 is the recognition of priorities. When we are now sheltering in place, we are so deeply aware of what we might have taken for granted. And that might include gathering together in our respective synagogues, going to restaurants, lounging at the beach, not just having to walk on the beach. But we're also reminded in these days of what really matters: our health, our loved ones, the goodness of the life that we breathe with each breath. And so Psalm 23 is a journey. It's a journey that begins with seeing oneself as a beloved sheep, guided by a shepherd. It leads us to a place where we're taught that although there may be shadows of death, there's only shadows when there's sun, and those clouds will part, and we will reach another side. We will get through this, and we'll get through this together. And when we do so, back to verse 5, we will do so with greater gratitude, God willing, and more, a sense of what really matters. Sadly, also, there are now 40 million Americans who are unemployed. It's devastating. I catch my breath. Each is a person with a family, with loved ones. I want everyone to know that these are difficult times, but more, that these are times in which we are growing and learning, sharing with each other, like now on Zoom. We're community. How beautiful was that service we just shared of different members of our community collectively enabling all of us to feel uplift on this, the holiday of Shavuot, when we are to see ourselves standing before the giver of a love letter of care, the Torah. And so in this moment, Psalm 23 is our guide. Ki ata imadi, because you stand with me, God. And that's not to be irrational. That's not to be supernatural. That is to be intuitively aware of the love that we feel in our lives flowing through us, of answering Einstein's question, do you feel safe in the world or not? A closing image. To survive in life is to live with a paradox. Some people call it the paradox of James, but his last name is escaping me. So here's the closing paradox. To simultaneously live life with open eyes, aware of the realities and to respond to the dangers, and to be prepared, and to be responsible, and simultaneously to have faith that life is good, to have faith that every person is invaluable, and to have faith that on the other side of the shadow is the light with a caring shepherd guiding us along the way. My privilege to be the leadoff participant as a teacher. There is so much more wonderful teaching ahead. I thank all of you for this opportunity to elevate myself with you in coming into Shavuot. Thank you. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, Yasher Koach, Rabbi Spitz, and Yasher Koach, Amy Robinson-Katz, for that beautiful Mizmor LeDavid. Next up is Rabbi Heidi Cohen.
Chag Sameach, everybody. It is so wonderful to be at Sinai with you. I remember when we stood there together, all of us. Let's see, I think Joel and Galen, you guys were a couple of rows over from me, maybe 3 rows back. Ellen Prince, I remember seeing you too. You were over to my left. Donna, I remember seeing you there too. You were dancing. That is Shavuot. This time of our being able to celebrate being at Sinai together, remembering that moment, standing there. Each and every one of us were there. We were there and we experienced that great sound, that great thunder. And yes, we trembled. We trembled at that moment. But the most comforting part was that we had one another. So I titled our lesson our time of learning together. And I'm going to warn you, I'm going to try something, but there are 270 of you online. which is awesome. That's beautiful. And that's 270 people, by the way, who are logged in. Some of you are logged in pairs. Hi, Mom and Dad, I see you. So here we are. I'm going to have us try and participate a little bit together. Now, how are we going to do that? We are going to try to use the raise hand feature, which if you click on participants, it'll come up, you'll see the list of participants and you'll see raise hand. So if you want to say something, then I'm going to invite you to do so. Josh Nowak, thank you so very much. You are going to also be my chief gatherer and helping me make sure that we bring everyone together on this. So let's get down to this. The study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, eternal soul of the universe, who makes all of us holy and commands each and every one of us to do something so incredible, so special, something we are all capable of doing. To study, to wrestle with, to challenge ourselves with words of Torah. By the way, the words of Torah are not only within those first 5 books that we all know. It is all of the words of our tradition. Think about it. 3,000 years worth of tradition. That's a lot of words to share. But we get to challenge them. We get to explore them together. And so some of the words that I wanted us to think about tonight in this time of our being at Sinai are the words suffering, sorrow, solace, simcha. There's a natural progression with these words. We think about suffering. Suffering is that pain that we experience, those difficult moments that we experience in our lives. We suffer. We suffer at a loss. We suffer when we are hurt. We suffer when a loved one dies. We suffer when we don't get to say goodbye. There is sorrow. Sorrow is that pain, that tear within. The moment that we allow those emotions to come forward. Sometimes it is wailing. Sometimes it is crying quietly and just allowing the fountains to pour forth from our eyes. So we need to feel that sorrow, to be present with it. Solace. Solace allows us to move now into that next phase, that time of comforting, that time of finding what it was our suffering, what was our sorrow, and how do I find comfort and how do I heal? And from there, we move on to simcha, to joy, to have that joy. And in fact, Debbie Friedman wrote in her song, to turn my mourning into dancing. Who would think that whole idea of mourning, that sorrow, that pain can then be turned into dancing? So what I'd like to do is go ahead and I'm going to share with us some text and looking through, guiding ourselves now through this time of our suffering, sorrow, solace, and simcha. So first, I want us to take a look at Exodus chapter 3, verses 7 through 10. And God continued, I have marked well the plight of my people in Egypt and have heeded their outcry because of their taskmasters. Yes, I am mindful of their sufferings. I have come down to rescue them from the Egyptians and to bring them out of that land to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. The region of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now the cry of the Israelites has reached me. Moreover, I have seen how the Egyptians oppress them. Come, therefore, I will send you to Pharaoh, and you shall free my people, the Israelites, from Egypt. So this text of God speaking to Moses and saying, go, Moses, go down to Egypt. I'm going to prepare you. But God is recognizing first the suffering of the people. So I ask you, why is it that moment? Let's see if anybody wants to participate with this. Why is it that moment? After 400 years, we've gone from Genesis to Exodus. We're missing a whole bunch of time between the two books. Why is it at that moment that God hears or recognizes the suffering? Anybody have any thoughts? If you do, go ahead and raise your hand there. Let's see here. Are we seeing anybody? Okay. Let's see.
Not seeing anyone yet, Rabbi, but maybe we have to start picking people out.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm kind of looking at some of you as well. If you're raising your hand there, and we'll see if anybody has a thought. Why do you think God is going ahead and saying, you know, hey, I see your suffering? Give it one more second. That's okay. Don't worry. Here we go. Eileen, go ahead.
It's going to be Victor. Go ahead.
Okay, Victor, go for it.
Okay, so my response would be that at the beginning, when Joseph was there, the Jews were treated very well. And then over time, as the Pharaoh who knew not Joseph took over and made the Jews into slaves, God began to see suffering that wasn't present previously.
This is right.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Gerald Fleischman.
Yes. Well, this may seem not kosher for some, but 400 is 40 times 10. Two special numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story. It's a high story. And I think that's why it's 400. And that's all.
That's beautiful. Thank you. So I want to go ahead now and take us, I'm going to take us back over to our text because they only gave us a half an hour. How do you give a rabbi only a half an hour to teach? So here we go. That's okay. We'll take it. All right. So let's look into now this idea of what happens in Numbers 11:5. So the Israelites, they are remembering. They're in the desert, right? And they are remembering the fish that we used to eat free in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. They remember all that really great food. It's like, wait a second. We were in slavery. We cried out, God, please save us from our suffering. But of course, now we change our mind. Hey, wait a minute, we're wandering in the desert. What about the fish and the cucumbers and the melons? So now we jump to 32, Exodus 32, 4 through 6, in which we start, actually, no, I'm not going to jump there quite yet because I want to go to Solace here in just a second. I'm going to jump down to this other text by Mimi Fagelson. There we go. Because we have that great memory, sometimes when we have memory, they would say when a woman gives birth, labor, okay? Those of us who have given birth, that labor, they say we forget the pain of labor. We forget it, especially when they put that wonderful little bundle in our arms. Why do we forget it? So that we'll do it again. So that we'll have children, more children. Because if we remember that pain and that suffering, we'll never do it again. But here at this moment, why is it that we forget the suffering that we experienced as slaves, and we only remember the fish, and we remember the cucumbers and the beautiful fruit that we had in Egypt? Was it really that beautiful? Well, Rabbi Mimi Fagelson takes us into this area of thinking about Egypt as a narrow place. And she writes in here, we are often in a rush to get out of uncomfortable situations, right? There are situations that we go, oh, I don't want to deal with this. Let me get out as quickly as I can. We want to solve problems as quickly as we can so that we need not dwell on them. But it appears that bracketing our stay in Mitzrayim with the word Mitzrayim functions as an invitation to actually sit in this space. It seems that the only way out of this constricted state of being is by going through it, not by circumventing it. The word Mitzrayim, actually, I'm going to diverge just a moment from the text. The word Mitzrayim means a narrow place. So when we were in Mitzrayim, we were in this narrow place. We had these blinders on. We could only see so much. And here, Rabbi Fagelson is saying that we can't circumvent this. We can't go around our suffering. We can't go around our sorrow. We can't overcome limitations that we've encountered unless we are willing to own our part in the situation. To be able to name and face our pain, to be able to claim our suffering, to be able to hold our loss. It is only then when we see ourselves in the light of our darkness that we can truly leave it behind as we walk towards new horizons. We are being asked to dwell in our pain and discomfort so that we will be able to indeed move forward. Without this process, it would appear that we will never be free from that which enslaved us. We would carry it with us, creating new Mitzrayims wherever we journeyed next. We won't be able to truly leave it behind. We need to be able to name the emotion so that we can find a remedy to heal it. So naming our emotion, naming our sorrow, naming our suffering. What is it in our lives? What is our Mitzrayim? Anybody have anything that they would like to share of what's our Mitzrayim? We know that COVID-19, that is our Mitzrayim right now. Vic and Lindsay, yes, go ahead. I just asked to unmute you. So go ahead and.
Yeah, Dick and Diane.
Hi, Heidi. Hi. Sorry, go ahead.
The thing that comes to mind, I know it's obvious, of course, but you're talking about discomfort. And of course, I'm thinking about how uncomfortable people are with the masks and everything they have to do, and how they're pushing against it because they want to get out of the discomfort as soon as possible, which is why so many are saying, let's get back to business because this is so uncomfortable.
If you talk about a narrow place, you're in a constriction.
You're
in a very tight place. In the case of Egypt, it was all life on the Nile and nowhere else. That was the narrow place. Here it's the walls around us that is the narrow place.
Or our thinking, or our lack of being able to expand our thinking, which is the narrow place.
Absolutely, you're right. That space of our physical space of having to be in our physical homes, and then we constrict it even more with the masks of wearing that, of having to wear those masks. And anybody who, by the way, is claustrophobic, I couldn't even imagine how that also can feel so constricting. Thank you so very much, Vic and Diane. So Rabbi Thunberg.
Hi, Rabbi Cohen.
Hi.
So the emotion that I would want to name here is fear. We everything at this point is unknown. Will we get sick or will we not? Will a loved one get sick or not? Will we have toilet paper? Will we have food? Will I ever go back to work? Will I ever have my income back? It's all about the fear of the unknown and the fear of quite frankly, catastrophe. My brother has has a private business and he could go out of business. So we all are concerned. There's fear of not seeing our loved ones. My mom's at Bubby and Zadie's. I haven't been able to see her. So that longing, that questioning, that fear of life, not just not going back to normal, but not being able to do the things that we should be able to do and wondering when we're going to do them, that's not just narrow, it's frightening.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It is, you're right, that fear, wanting, I can't imagine being able to just go to the house of Bubby and Zadie's and all you can do is stand at the window there. And there again, another narrow place. Yeah. And the question too, what is even normal anymore? When we say, I want to get back to my regular routine, what is that? We don't even know what that is anymore. We don't know what it will be. We're in creation. Thank you. Norm Rosen.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
You asked what the current Mitzrayim is, or what one person's Mitzrayim is. And I'm going to suggest that it's the falling under the assumption that the grass is greener somewhere else. This is the very early complaint that the Jews had coming out of Egypt. It's better there. That's where the fish is and the good things to eat and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. It's better over there. It comes from being a slave, because when you're a slave, the grass really is greener anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But in coming towards freedom, there comes a time when you have to get some sort of perspective that, well, no, the grass really isn't greener someplace else. And it can be even greener here if we make it that way.
Yeah, thank you. You're right. It's that they're wanting to go out and now they want to live, and it's like, whoa, wait a second. No, we're not so sure about that. We thought the grass was going to be greener, but is it really? Faye Pearl, what do you have to say for us, please? Here, Faye, I'll go ahead and ask to unmute again. Oh. Faye?
Yeah, am I unmuted?
Hi. Yep, we got you now. Thank you.
I have I'm a very touchy-feely person.
Mm-hmm.
And the notion of not shaking hands and the notion of not being able to touch other people, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid of having to live that way.
Right. Oh, I'm totally with you, Faye. That idea of I am not sharing my screen right now, so I don't know what's going on there. So if somebody there is sharing their screen, okay.
I'll get it.
Okay, sorry, thank you. But Faye, thank you. That whole idea of that fear of are we going to be able to hug? Are we going to be able to touch each other? Yeah, there is something about human connection. I don't know about the rest of you, but wow, am I missing, that human connection with each other. Zoom is amazing, but I don't see the brightness of your eyes as much as I would love to. Thank you so much. David Zarnow, sorry.
Yes, that's correct. That's
Great.
correct.
Thank
yes,
you.
We've met on occasion, Heidi.
Hi, good to see you.
I would contend that there's something missing here. In Mitzrayim, the mem is the operative letter for me because it means from. And we're going from the narrowness, and it's up to us to have to let go of the baggage and find new space. We have to go from somewhere. We have to know that we're coming from somewhere. And I think that's from the narrowness to greener pastures, better opportunities. If we recognize that we can overcome the narrowness of hatred, the narrowness of strife, and make greener pastures for everybody, everybody will thrive. And I think that's the key point to me.
Thank you. And I want to add on to that then, from the mem to the lamed to the two. So yes. That it's, Thank you. Not just going from somewhere, but it's Two. Where?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Let me go ahead and let's see. I know Jackie has, and we'll take this last one, and then I want to go on to some of our other words. So Jackie.
Hi.
Hi, Jackie.
Well, you know, the way I look at it is that if we have life and hope, we can overcome anything that there is, that we have to walk through it. If we're not alive and we don't have the hope that it gets better, we're really going to get stuck in the suffering. The way I look at it, there may be pain that's necessary in life. There are bad times, there are difficulties, there is illness, there's strife, there's quarantine. But that's something that we can get through it. However, if we choose to stay in it and wallow in it, we will stay in that narrowness. We'll never get out of it. We'll get into that tube of narrow passage and stay there. So the way I look at it is our opportunity to grow, to embrace life, make the best of it, and have hope that it'll pass us and that we'll become stronger and better people because of that narrowness. When we give birth to children, they come through a very narrow passage. And then when they come out through that difficult time, they come out screaming, stronger, and more prepared to life. So I say, this is just another narrow passage to get through. You know, I'm going through a narrow passage of my own. And if I didn't have the experience and the background of faith and strong belief in God, that those narrow places are just temporary, I'd be really in trouble. I'd be really wallowing in suffering. I choose not to. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Jackie, so very much. Thank you for sharing that with us. And there are many of us that we are there with you and holding your hand during this time and from this narrow place to blessings. So I want to take us then to our next places. First of all, it's interesting that when we look at solace, how do we find solace? Where do we find solace? Now, you know, the Israelites went ahead and they found solace here in Exodus 32, 4-6. I won't read the whole thing. You know, it's the story of the golden calf. Go ahead, build us this golden calf. And then it's explained, this is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Why were they seeking solace in something like this? Well, we can read all the midrashim, we can think about all the commentaries with it. Were they trying to go back to something that they knew, something that they could hold on to, something that they were familiar with? And so we go down to Dr. Yair Barkai, the desert as a metaphor. And he says the wilderness represents the absence of materialism, natural purity, and humility. It gives human beings the ability to listen to their inner voice, to their true feelings, to honesty at its best, but also gives them the ability to be open and receptive to what filters into the soul of the person contemplating the infinite expanses of the wilderness. These characteristics form the foundation for perfect acceptance of the Torah. Torah is not acquired through pride or self-importance. That materialism gives man. Those who wish to receive the Torah and wisdom must labor and train themselves to acquire suitable characteristics. Rendering mutual assistance, being satisfied with little, and welcoming guests are among the cornerstones of life for dwellers in the wilderness, forged in the difficult living conditions there. Therefore, the wilderness was a suitable place for the Israelites to become a people who accept God's teaching. So how awesome from that place. So we go from the narrowness of Mitzrayim into the desert, into this massive place, this place of wilderness, and there, stripped of everything. Because we left then that materialism then first at the golden calf, and then we focus it then into what will become the Mishkan. It's not about the materialism. It is about what is within us. It's what's in here, giving us that opportunity to accept Torah with open heart, with fullness of heart. And so when we think then of La Yehudim Haita Ora V'Simcha V'Sason V'Kar, the Jews enjoyed light and gladness, happiness and honor. All these different words of joy. And I'm just going to give us just a few words of joy because I've only got 3 minutes left. So here we go. Jewish vocabulary of joy. Simcha, generic word. Osher, deeper, lasting happiness. Ora, light, right? La Yehudim, Haita Ora. Okay, I could go on. Gila, okay, that term specifically referred to the exuberant outburst of joy. Gila. Okay, go ahead. I want you to go ahead. You're all on mute. Say it, go. Gila. Feel it. It just goes out. Rina, refreshing happiness. Ditsa, sublime joy. Sason, unexpected happiness. Sahala, word used for both happiness and dancing. We danced at Sinai when we received Torah. Chedva, happiness of togetherness. We're together at Sinai. We're together right here. We are always together. And then we go on to chedva, happiness of togetherness. Teruah, that sound, remember from shofar, teruah, shout of joy. And then tzachak, to laugh, play, and rejoice. Those wonderful words of joy and of happiness. So many words to describe our joy. So here we are. What did we learn when we were in the desert? We learned that we don't need all this stuff. We need what's deep within here. We need what's inside of us. We need each other. We need the togetherness. We need to know that when we are suffering, we don't suffer alone. That we're with one another. When we're in that narrow place, that we are together. We need the moments to embrace our sorrow, to allow the tears to fall and not push them away. We find comfort, solace together and within ourselves. And from there, we move on to simcha, to joy. My friends, I am grateful, so grateful that we got to share this time together. To be able to celebrate in these moments. Thank you for being at Sinai with me, and I look forward to continuing our studying and our journey today and always. Chag Sameach, everyone. Be well.
Chag Sameach.